Long before the rise of Christianity, Celtic Druids preached that the human soul was eternal. In death, one simply, well, maybe not simply, moved to a different plane of existence, a different realm. The Otherworld. According to author and librarian Ruth Edna Kelly's The Book of Halloween, on the last night of the year, which for the Gaelic or Gaelic-speaking Celts fell on October 31st, Samhain, Halloween's pagan progenitor, the Lord of Death held court, gathering together the souls of those who had died in the past year and passing judgment as to where they should go next. So the question is, this Irish god of death, who is he? Or should I be asking, who is she? Because it turns out the Irish pantheon has at least 3 distinct deities who deal in death, the most notable of whom is a woman. Or I guess technically she's 3 women? That'll make sense in a few seconds, I promise. The Morrígan. The Morrígan was the, quote, major goddess of war, of death, and slaughter, end quote, according to historian Peter Beresford Ellis, who continues in his A Dictionary of Irish Mythology that she embodied all that was perverse and horrible among the supernatural powers. As a triune or triple goddess, the Morrígan manifests as 3 separate entities or incarnations, usually Baive, Macha, and Neman. However, in author and scholar Charles Squire's account, there are 5 personalities total, all with different responsibilities, if you will. These are 1. Fi, the hateful, 2. Neman, the venomous, 3. Baive, the fury, 4. Macha, a personification of battle, and over all of them, 5. The Morrigu, or Great Queen. In his book Celtic Myth and Legend, Squire goes on to describe the Morrigan as the, quote, supreme war goddess of the Gaels, who resembles a fiercer Hera. Wherever there was war, either among gods or men, she, the Great Queen, was present, either in her own shape or in her favorite disguise, that of a hoodie or carrion crow. End quote. The tripartite Morrigan likely inspired the Weird Sisters from Shakespeare's Macbeth, and going further back, Morgan Le Fay from Arthurian legend. But is the Morrigan really the Irish god of death, or is she more narrowly the Irish god of death in battle? Because nearly every early account of the Morrigan has her witnessing, participating in, or dealing with the aftermath of a battle. Notably, the Morrigan torments Cuchulainn, arguably the greatest hero from Irish mythology, and has a front row seat to the desecration of his corpse. As Ellis explains, quote, having first tried to incite Cuchulainn to make love to her, she, the Morrigan, fought with him and he managed to wound her. For this, his fate was sealed. When he was eventually killed, she settled on his shoulder in triumph in the form of a crow and watched while a beaver drank his blood, end quote. Don't read too much into the symbolism of that one. Just kidding, you absolutely should. Because what the essence of the Morrigan really boils down to is the power of the sacred female. Stick with me for a second. Danu, another triple goddess, the one that gave the Irish gods the Tuatha De Danann their name, is a Celtic mother goddess. She's nurturing, life-giving. The Morrigan is Danu's dark reflection. As archaeologist and academic Barry Cunliffe explains in his book Druids, A Very Short Introduction, quote, the female power was a mother goddess controlling fertility and productivity. Her very abundance was sometimes expressed by her triple form. But she also had within her the power of destruction and the fury of slaughter, the opposites of nurture and fertility, and could bring devastation and death. In this dangerously unstable form, she appears in the tales as the ferocious Morrigan, who needed careful handling and much propitiation, end quote. Specifically, the Dagda, the father of the gods, agreed to get his free gun with the Morrigan once a year during the Feast of Samhain, a deed that ensured the Morrigan would protect the Dagda's tribe, or Tuatha, in the year to come. So there we have it. Not only does Cunliffe clearly distinguish the Morrigan as a death goddess, the opposite of the nurturing, life-giving mother goddess Danu, but he also connects the Morrigan to Samhain, the ultimate Irish celebration of the dead. Donn. First things first. Ellis describes Donn as an Irish god of the dead, which naturally makes him Dawn of the Dead. Shall we continue? In Irish mythology, Donn, whose name is derived from the Proto-Celtic Dusnu, meaning dark or black, fills the role of psychopomp, which means he's responsible for guiding the souls of the recently departed to the land of the dead. In Donn's case, he gathers souls together at his abode on Tech Duin, the House of Donn, which is an actual island now known as Bull Rock off the coast of the Beara Peninsula in southwestern Ireland. It is from Donn's island that the departed then cross over to the Celtic Otherworld. Given the coastal island location, it is perhaps not surprising that Donn is also associated with sea storms and shipwrecks. And while some accounts of Donn's heritage name him as a son of Midir the Proud, a god of the Tuatha De Danann, best known for his role in the ancient Irish saga the Takmark Aideen, or Wooing of Aideen, the death god is also sometimes associated with Donn, one of the 8 sons of Melas Spania, leader of the Milesians. In the Lever Gabella Erin, Book of Invasions, or the Book of the Taking of Ireland, the Milesians represent the Gaelic-speaking Celts who, sailing from Spain, conquer Ireland Ireland and send the Irish gods underground. However, not all of the legions will make it to shore, and included in that unfortunate lot is Donn. But to be fair, Donn sort of has it coming. While Donn's brother American Glingle, the super powerful druid/bard, is doing his best to negotiate with the matron goddess of Ireland, Eru, something I touched on in an earlier video, Donn is just downright rude to her. Not a smart move when dealing with deities. Long story short, she foretells his doom, and in one version of the story, Donn falls into the sea, never to be seen again. In another version, upon Donn's death, Donn's surviving brothers fulfill his request of burying him on an island off the coast of southwestern Ireland, and voila, you can see how this Donn could then be conflated with or reimagined as Donn, the Irish god of the dead. From a narrative perspective, it also fits that Eru, the embodiment and namesake of Ireland, might further punish Donn for disrespecting her, i.e. Ireland, by forcing him to forever serve as Ireland's official sole farrier. And while Donn has become steeped in local Irish lore over the centuries, professor and Irish folklorist a.k.a. is still, quote, struck by the resemblance to the Greek lore of Pluto and the ferrying of souls across the river Styx, end quote. The most sensible explanation for this resemblance, as O'Hogan explains in his book The Sacred Isle, is that the medieval Christian scribes who first wrote down the myths of Ireland, scribes who would have been well acquainted with the ancient Greek literature, couldn't help but sprinkle in some Greek elements. It's likely we see some of this same Greek influence at work in the stories of the great chariot battles of Cuchulainn, who is sometimes called the Irish Achilles. However, it's also possible that Donn and the river Styx ferryman Charon, Greek mythology psychopomp, and Pluto/Hades/Dispater are all descended from a shared Proto-Indo-European soul-ferrying tradition, one that predates both the ancient Greeks and the ancient Celts. After all, the ancient Greek and ancient Celtic religions were two of the first religions in Europe to preach the existence of an immortal soul, and scholars still argue over which side came up with the concept first. A shared Proto-Indo-European origin renders that debate null, and if that's the case, it's likely this next Irish god of death stems from that same tradition. Bilé. Call him Billa, call him Belinus or Belinos, call him Bell or Belly or Bal or Ball, just don't call him the Belle of the Ball because this Celtic god ain't no pretty princess, he's the homecoming king of the dead. Sorry, I don't know what I was doing there, but here's the important stuff. Bilé, Irish god of death, is the Gaelic Celtic iteration of a much older god whose cult once stretched across northwestern Europe. Among the Brittonic a.k.a. Brythonic Celts in Wales, he was known as Beli Mar, while to the Gaulish Celts he was Belinos. The influence of this death-dealing deity can still be seen today in the places that bear his name, including London's Billingsgate, which was originally Belinos' Gate. According to Ellis, the god also lent his name to the pre-Roman British king Cunobeline, the Hound of Bel, who would later be reimagined by Shakespeare as Cymbeline. And he lent his name to the fiery Gaelic May Day festival of Beltany, one possible etymology of which is the Fires of Bel. Now, in the Irish myths, Bilé is sometimes portrayed as the father of gods and men, a role usually reserved for the Dagda. And according to Squire, even though he is never mentioned by name, one may assume, quote, from British analogies, that Bilé is the husband of the aforementioned mother goddess Danu. And just as the Morrigan is the Danu's dark reflection, so too is Bilé the dark reflection of the Dagda. I guess opposites really do attract. Squire goes on to describe Bilé as being, quote, known to Gaelic tradition as a god of Hades, a kind of Celtic despoter from whom sprang the first men, end quote. This mimics what we see in the Gaulish Celtic tradition, with the Gauls believing they were descendants of the god Succulus, who's been called the Gaulish despoter. And while it might be strange to believe that one's population was given life by a god of death, it's actually more common than you might think. The Hindu god of death Yama, for example, is sometimes worshipped as the creator of humankind. What's more, the Celtic land of the dead isn't filled with fire and brimstone. Instead, as historian J.A. McCulloch notes in his book The Religion of the Ancient Celts, in Celtic belief the underworld was probably a fertile region and a place of light, nor were its gods harmful and evil, end quote. Indeed, a lot of these Celtic otherworld gods are presented as being basically human, or what will happen is, over time, gods will become euhemerized, i.e. conflated with historical or quasi-historical figures. This happened with the aforementioned death god Donn, son of Milispania, and the same thing happened with Bilé too. Get this, in some texts, Bilé is listed as the father of Milispania, making him Donn's grandfather. The Dawn of the Dead? Sorry, had to. What are the odds that two guys from the same family would both become death deities? Pretty good actually when you consider that their ancestral home, Spain, was literally the location of the land of the dead in Irish mythology, the Irish Hades. And according to Squire, it was Bilé who sent the Milesians from Hades to take possession of Ireland, setting the events of the Milesian invasion in motion and sealing the fate of Ireland's divine inhabitants, the Tuatha De Danann. What the hell? Final Judgment. So there you have it, 3 gods of death from Irish mythology, all of whom, it turns out, have unique and worthy places in the pantheon. The Morrígan and Bilé are the dark reflections of, respectively, the sacred female and the sacred male. They create life through death, which sounds like an oxymoron until you remember how nature works, how the most fertile soil is that which is rich with the remains of the once living. As for Donn, he's essentially an errand boy, forced to manage sole transportation logistics for the entire island, while the other Irish death deities bone each other once a year to prevent the end of days. So no, Donn's might not be as lofty an occupation as his grandpa's, but hey, psychopomp is nothing to scoff at. We've all got to start somewhere. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment and tap all of the little buttons, and by the end of it, make sure you are subscribed to the Irish Myths channel. That really helps. And if you want to learn more about the role of death in Irish mythology, check out my book, Samhain in Your Pocket, a tiny little book about the Celtic origins of Halloween. You'll learn frightening factoids like how the jack-o'-lantern got its name from Stingy Jack, a spirit who cheated the devil but was then cursed to roam the bogs of Ireland alone for all eternity. Neat! My name is I.e. Neverday, editor of the short story collection Neon Druid and creator of IrishMyths.com. Thanks for coming out.